Hello. Just waiting for Lehua to join. Looks like the Instagram live setting. Oops, I just put a filter on. Sorry about that. The Instagram settings have changed since my last live, so bear with me as I learn the new settings here. Though I did like that extra sparkle filter on my face. Oh, Amy says, tell us about today's earrings. Thank you for noticing, Amy. So these are made by Warren Stephen Scott, who is a First Nations artist, and they're based on traditional like Northwest Coast designs. Let's see. Thank you, Corey. Sorry, I can't find the button to invite someone else to join. Just waiting for Lehua to join, and then hopefully I will be able to figure out how to add them to this live. Thank you for bearing with me, everybody. Instagram is always changing, so it's hard to keep up with all of these updates. Aha, I figured it out. All right, great. Well, while we're waiting for Lehuauakea to join, I have some upcoming events that I wanted to share with you all. Next week on May 20th, so that's next Thursday, we have our Anne Ray interns doing their final presentation, and that's happening at 2 p.m. So you can go to our website to get registered for that. It's going to be a really great presentation. I'm excited to hear what the interns have to say about their time at SAR. And then the following Thursday, on May 27th, we have our Dobkin Fellow, Nibenakshuk South Hall, will be doing their final presentation, and that's on May 27th at 4:30 p.m. And so you can go to our website, click on the calendar, and get signed up for both of those events. And they are both free and open to the public, so they should be really great, and we look forward to seeing some of you all virtually. Let's see, received a notification that, oh, let's see, let's try and invite them. Oh, there we go. I think that should work. And actually, in 2 weeks, we're also going to be starting a new live series. Some of you might have seen our SAR Makes YouTube series with our education assistant, Diego Medina. And so he'll be connecting with artists and doing some, oh, hello.
Hi.
Just doing a bit of stalling here. I was having some technical difficulties with Instagram.
Same here, so it seems to be working now, though.
Yes. Okay. I'm so glad you were able to join, and it's nice to meet you. For everyone who is tuned in, I'm live here with Lehuauakea, who will be our Dubin Fellow this year, and they will be in residence from June 15th through July 15th, or yes, I think I got those dates right. August 15th. Thank you. And so we're really excited to get a little sneak peek of what they plan to be working on during their time at SAR. So I will let you take it away and maybe just start by sharing a little bit about yourself and the work that you do.
Yeah, I'll just like introduce myself. I can do that. Aloha mai kako, Lehuauakea ko uinoa, no papaiko makamoko ke ake mai au. Noho au ma Portland, aina o ka po'e Cowlitz, me Chinook, me Kalapuya. O Mauna wa Kea ku'u Mauna, o ku'u Kalepa ku'u ka Hawaii. My name is Lehuauakea. I'm a Kanaka Maoli artist living here in Portland now, land of the Cowlitz, Kalapuya, and Chinook tribes. But I'm originally from Papai'iko on the Big Island of Hawaii. My mountain is Mauna Kea, and my stream is Pu'okalepa Stream. So yeah, I guess today with Felicia, I'm just going to talk about my practice, some of my tools, and share a little bit about what I'll be working on while I'm in residence at SAR this summer. So yeah, thank you for joining.
Great. It's so nice to have you. And I just love your work already, just seeing images of it, and I can't wait to see it in person.
Thank you.
And so you are a traditional kapa maker, is that correct?
Yeah, amongst other things, but that's kind of
Oh, yes.
the pillar of my practice is definitely kapa making.
Great. Um, so for some of our viewers who might be based in the Southwest, they might not have very much experience or knowledge about kapa making. Can you maybe share a little bit about your practice and what that entails? And then maybe a little bit later we could see some of your tools and some examples of your work.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those who might be new to kapa, kapa, or also known throughout different parts of Polynesia as tapa, natu, or masi. It's a bark cloth made from the specific types of trees, and so it's a very labor-intensive process of stripping the bark from the inner part of the tree and beating it into a very soft, fibrous, very sturdy cloth that was used for clothing, ceremonial purposes, bedding. Our newborn babies were born in this cloth, and our ibi the bones, when one passes away, were wrapped in this cloth as well. So you really lived your life um, from birth to death in, surrounded by this cloth. So it's really special. And so back in the 1970s and 80s up until today, with the Hawaiian Renaissance, a lot of dedicated practitioners brought this practice back so that we have it today in Hawaii, where we almost lost it. So it's really an honor to be part of the next generation of kapa makers, and I look forward to not being the last kapa maker in my lineage.
That's great. And I'm just curious about your materials. I mean, living away from Hawaii, do you continue to utilize materials that are from your home, or do you try to incorporate some of the local materials from where you're based?
A little bit of both. So all of the bark cloth that I'm working with now is all either gifted to me or collected with my kumu, Uncle Wesley Sen. He's from Oahu. And he actually was the little boy that my grandma used to babysit about 60 years ago. So there's like a really close kind of connection there that spans several generations, which I'm really grateful for. So when I do get a chance to go back, I collect wauke. This is the tree that we use primarily for kapa, and so that's when I go and collect for at least several months' supply. But I also, in terms of my pigments and my paints, I don't have access to the fresh like flowers or roots, tree bark that I would have access to back home. So I try to build a better, closer relationship with the land that I'm occupying now in Oregon, um, by learning about the plants around me that I can use for dyes, or collecting earth pigments in very small amounts when I can.
That's amazing. Do you plan to do the same while you're in residence at SAR?
Yeah, I would really like to. Part of my project proposal for this fellowship was to not only bring the knowledge and some of the dyes that I have, that I carry and walk with, but also to do that in exchange with maybe some other native practitioners that are in the area. So it's not, I don't really want to be a part of this extraction that a lot of indigenous people unfortunately face on their lands. And so I want to at least be open and try to facilitate some sort of like connection and exchange between like cross-cultural exchange.
That's beautiful. And I think we would love to hear a little bit more about your specific project that you have planned for SAR. I have had the privilege of reading about it, but I would love to hear about it in your own words and your voice.
Yeah, it's really hard to I guess describe, but so kapa is a cloth, right? And sometimes we use it as paper in a more contemporary sense. So I plan to do at least 2 or 3 pieces. Um, one that is more utilizing its more paper qualities, and that will be more of a two-dimensional painting. And the other piece is going to be much larger, probably a 10 to 15-foot tapestry of this cloth, and it's going to be more of a wall installation. And not only will I be making the cloth while I'm there, but I'll be hand painting and patterning the cloth with my traditional patterns and symbols, all of which come together to tell a collective story. Um, and so that story will probably be something along the lines of the past year and all of the radical changes that have shifted a lot of our lives. So something along those lines.
Great, thank you for sharing. We had a comment in the chat here, and for those of you watching, please feel free to type any comments or questions that you might have in the little box at the bottom, and I'm happy to share them. But Shandine says, in the Amelia White Park behind SAR, there are some beautiful juniper trees. Maybe you could have a Diné person help you harvest them for jewelry.
Oh,
That's a great idea. So sweet.
I'd love to connect with anyone who's down in Santa Fe this summer.
And before we start looking at some of the examples of your work and your materials, I'd love to hear more about what you're looking forward to. Have you ever been to Santa Fe?
I have never been to Santa Fe, but I've been to New Mexico, Albuquerque, and a little bit of surrounding areas near Bandelier and Jemez, Shiprock. So, yeah, I've never been to Santa Fe though, and I hear it's very filled with a lot of indigenous presence, but also like arts and culture. So, I'm excited to see how all of that plays out during my residency.
That's great. So do you have anything else that you're looking forward to about living in Santa Fe?
Um, I guess it's not really art related. Well, part of it is actually. Just the change in weather. I know it's like getting warmer here in Portland right now, but just being around more vitamin D, I think would really do my spirit some good. But then on the other side of that, I'll get to be away from a lot of city noise and a lot of close contact with other people. Um, just in like an urban sense, it's very densely populated, right? And so the act of making kapa, the process is very loud, and I can't really do it in my tiny apartment. So I'm really looking forward to not angering my neighbors by my beading process, which should be a lot easier when they're not like 20 feet or less away.
Definitely. Yeah, I lived in Portland for maybe about 5 years, and so I'm still amazed by how much sunshine there is here. It's sunny even when it's snowing or raining, and so yeah, it's just a beautiful place to be. And the campus is just really amazing, and um, I find it to be very peaceful, and so I think it'll be a nice experience for you to be here and be on campus and have the space to create your kappa.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Oh, and I should also mention your partner Ian, who's also Kanaka Mali. I'm very excited to connect with him, and he's also been working on kuakupu, which is a wooden anvil to beat kappa on, so that I can make kappa while I'm there and not carry my big, very long anvil all the way to Santa Fe. So very.
Yes. Yeah, it's been a fun process learning from him about kappa making and watching him make this tool. I don't have a lot of experience with Native Hawaiian art, and so it's just fun to like. I feel like I learn something new every day, which is just great. And it's so fun that you all are both Dubin fellows, and that you get to like hold this space here in Santa Fe.
Yeah, I'm honored.
Let's see. Amy comments, lots of sun, not much humidity, and lots of blue sky. Definitely.
Sounds good.
Well, I think I would love to see some examples of your work and any of your tools that you're willing to share.
Yeah, and if you give me a moment, I'll start by pulling out like the rawest form of bark that I have, just so you can see the transformation
Okay.
into the cloth. But one second. Forgot to pull that out earlier. But so this is about harvested about a month ago, and this is dried. So normally I would beat from fresh material, and you can see just how thick this
Mhm.
is. But this is the outer bast of the Welka tree or the paper mulberry tree, and this would be the starting point of the kappa making process. So it's already been stripped from the outermost green and brown layer of the bark, and this is just you can get a sneak peek at the whiter um, inside layer that eventually becomes the cloth. But I've dried it out so it didn't get all moldy
Mhm.
before I come to Santa Fe.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. Just the color of the bark in itself is really beautiful.
Yeah, and it smells so good too. I think it's one of my favorite smells.
Mm.
It smells like the sun and the earth and salt water and fresh water all woven together. It smells so good. Um, but I'll start there, and that eventually will be soaked for a couple weeks
Mm.
to ret the fibers, which gets a lot of the starchy uh, content out and a lot of the sap. So it makes a cleaner, finer, and softer product to work with. If I were to have beaten that fresh from like right off the tree, right after I
Mhm.
harvested it down and processed it, it would come out to something like this. And this is not quite a mo'o mo'o, but I guess you could call it that, which just means a very like preliminary basic cloth. So you can
Mm.
see it's very pliable, it's very soft, and it's very strong and fibrous at the same time. All of these little holes were where stems and leaves were growing out of.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's really important to tend to your Welka patch so that you don't have a very strong branch take root, and then you
Mm.
end up with a huge hole that you'll end up having to patch when you beat it out. So it's really an intimate process to get to know the land that the Lehuauakea is growing from, but also the trees themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And this cloth can be soaked again, and I probably will do that. When you soak it again, you get an even softer material when you beat it out, and you can get it even thinner, almost like a sheet of paper. And so those are like the raw examples that I had to show you guys. But in terms of what I have going on right now, which will be similar to what I'm doing in Santa Fe, I also have this one that I'm working on at the moment. The bottom part is all done, but this is still in progress. And yeah, it's very thin. It's a lot thinner than the initial piece that I showed you guys at first. But it's the same material, just beaten down a couple times and soaked. That's a really important part of the process.
That's beautiful. And these are all natural pigments?
Yes. The black is from my friend's land that nearly burned down. Well, part of it burned down. His house almost burned down this summer during all the wildfires that we had near Portland. The fire got about 20 feet from his house. And back in October, I went back and prayed over the land and also gathered some charcoal to use for my practice. And then the red is kind of like desert stone from Southern Oregon.
Beautiful.
So that's kind of a similar aesthetic to what I'll be working on this summer, but on a bigger scale.
So do you have like your vision for the designs planned out beforehand, or does it kind of come to you as you're working?
I don't draft or plan out anything beforehand. I don't sketch anything at all. I just kind of go with the flow and see what pulls me, what stories need to come out. I think if back in the past, I would have sketched and tried to premeditate designs and patterns that I wanted to show, but at this point in my practice, it's much more immediate and intimate for me to just go without any sketch and just see what comes up. So, yeah. And then I also have just a few of my tools here, just kind of to show you guys what the process kind of entails. But this is one of my beaters. It's kind of long, I guess. This is called an iekuku, and it's usually patterned on 3 sides and left 1 side blank. But I wanted to pattern 4 sides so that the 2 really densely patterned sides could tell a story. And so, let's see here. This side is to beat early on and really helps to soften and break up the fibers. This side helps to felt the fibers together, especially after they've been soaked a little while, the cloth. And then this side, as well as this side, these are patterns that both have their own representations and meanings that that are traditionally used in kappa beaters. But this is the final mark that the beater gives to the cloth, and it is used to imprint a watermark in the finished product. So even in this piece that you can see here, but I don't think you can see it through the Instagram live, but there's a little imprint of this pattern within the cloth itself, which I think is really cool. And so you have pattern on pattern on pattern oftentimes.
Those are beautiful. So do you make all of your own tools that you use in your practice?
Yeah, some of them are, I do all the carving, but some of the initial like wood blanks were given to me by my kumu, Uncle Wes. Um, this one was given to me by him. It just started off as a blank beater, and then I did all the carving for it. So it's kind of like a collaborative thing. I had to finish it and show up to do the work, you know.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So to our audience members just tuning in, please feel free to type any comments or questions that you might have in the little box there. See. Let me look at my questions list. Let's see. So Amy mentioned earlier that the climate in Santa Fe is quite different from Portland or Hawaii. Um, do you imagine that your kappa making process will be the same, or do you think you'll have to make any adjustments based on the dryness here?
My immediate thought is that I will have to definitely work more in the shade. Um, when you're working with kappa, you really want to make sure that it stays damp. It's very important to have water and dampness within the cloth. Otherwise, um, yeah, it's just not going to go so great.
Mhm.
So I think that if I were to work really like in direct sunlight, my cloth would dry out too fast. So that's my immediate thought. But once I get there, it could be a totally different story.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure that's hard to plan for. So I'm excited to see like how it goes and
Yep.
what kind of adjustments you have to make, if any. We have a question from Sean Dean. They would like to know what is your advice for emerging jewelry makers and artists?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, I guess like a couple things. The first thing would be to always make from an authentic place. Um, People can sense when you're making work that really comes from your heart and your na'o, or like your gut, um, and it'll resonate with people differently, and it'll take you farther. The second thing is, learn as much as you can, not only about the techniques that you can do, but also from your elders and from other people who are more experienced. There's always going to be someone who can teach you something new. And the last thing would be to keep going. I think there's so many times that I've wanted to stop, just because it's either challenging or hard, or I feel like I don't have the resources accessible nearest to me. But we say more like keep going. You have to keep going in order to succeed, and that consistency and that dedication will shine through in your practice.
That's great advice. Thank you. So earlier you mentioned that you are a kappa maker among other things, and so I'd love to hear a little bit about the other types of art that you create and maybe how those different practices inform each other or are part of the same practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so while kappa making and carving like tools and things are my primary work, I also really enjoy like painting on wood panels and abstract, kind of like mixed media, ink and watercolor kind of things. While those are like very, very different in media and application, I really like to bring in my patterns that I work with into my wood panel paintings. I would show you one, but I just wrapped them up this morning for drop off. Um, but yeah, I like to bring my patterns, the ones that I like carve on my like Ohe Kapala
Oh, wow.
here. I have kind of a lot, but these patterns I bring in throughout a lot of my practice, whether it's painting or printmaking or even tattooing. Um, the patterns are what actually got me started with kappa, so I kind of did it the other way around, even though patterns and painting are usually the last step in the kappa making process.
Mm-hmm.
I started there and then eventually realized, like, oh, I really need to actually learn how to make the cloth that I'm making these tools for. So then that led me to be doing the work that I'm doing now.
Beautiful. Do you plan to create any new tools or any new patterns while you're in residence?
Yeah, I would definitely at least like to make one or two new like stamping tools, but I'm always creating new patterns and new designs to work with, especially based on where I go and who I interact with. So I do my best to honor the places that I'm in, and visiting. I'm a visitor too. Um, so yeah, at least a couple more new tools.
Great. Well, I'm so excited for you to come to Santa Fe and to see the work that you create while you're here. I think those are all the questions that I have, but anyone watching, if you have any last minute questions or comments, please feel free to type them in the comment box. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add or any questions for me?
Um, Not really. Maybe just say hi to Ian for me.
Oh, and there he
On
is.
Twitter.
He says, can't wait to see some of the patterns you make while here. Yes, I'm excited for you all to connect and for you to travel to Santa Fe.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Aloha!
Right. Oh, we have another question. Oh, we have many questions or comments. Let's see. Where do you want to see this practice in the future?
Um, yes, so my biggest career goal by far is to be a grandma teaching their mo'opuna how to make kapa and how to live that kind of life. And I have a long way to go, but I'm still young and there's a lot of life left to be lived. So, as I mentioned earlier, I don't want to be the last kapa maker in my generation or my family.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to teach my kids and their kids how to make kapa and how to carry on this kuleana. So that's where I see this practice in the future. I have several sheets of kapa waiting for whenever I end up having my own family. They will be born into kapa, which is something that my family hasn't been able to do for at least 7 generations.
Wow, that's beautiful. Wow, we have so many comments coming in. Ian says, see you soon. The Kuleana is real. Corey says, thank you so much for sharing your beautiful work. Shantine says, thank you for sharing. Love your energy. Amy, who works at SAR, and Shantine is currently an intern as well. Amy says, looking forward to meeting you and seeing your beautiful work. Ray Run Faster says, just here for knowledge on my culture. Hopefully one day I feel more connected. Thank you for the content. Lots of good things. And then we have one more down at the bottom here. Do you see any similarities between kappa and tattoo patterns? How do you approach the two as separate mediums? It's a good question.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of the patterns that were traditionally and are traditionally used in contemporary Hawaiian tattooing are very similar, if not the same patterns that are used in kappa. Um, these patterns were not just used in just kappa or tattooing, but also woven into our mats. They were carved into different wooden ki'i, they were also used even as patterning on our ipu, our water gourds. So they range in meaning from telling stories or protection, representing one's genealogy and the lands that they come from, but also the kuleana that their family carried on. Um, and so that's kind of the same thinking that I try to approach whenever I use my patterns, no matter what application that I might be using them for.
It's beautiful. Well, I'm so excited for you to come to Santa Fe and learn more. I mean, I have so much to learn from you, and you're going to be in residence for 2 months, and so there'll be plenty of time to catch up. And I know folks will be looking forward to your artist talk in August, and so I won't ask everything. We'll save some information for your artist talk. And yeah, we're just looking forward to you coming to Santa Fe and starting your residency.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm very honored for this opportunity and just to connect with other Kanaka and Indigenous artists in that area. So, mahalo nui loa kākou apau.
Great. Thank you so much for your time today, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, take care. Mahalo.
You too. Bye.